If you're ready for love, 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 if you're ready for and rewrite our romance. Let's go dancing up top for a while. The sky's so beautiful, the stars are wild. Future, love, love, future, 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 love, love, future. There is no future that can be designed with some imagination and a beautiful mind. Did I disgrace myself, bring shame to the flock? I was sick with resentment, couldn't help myself. The earth is shaking, I wanna go home. The clock is ticking, we'll go it alone. The rest is history, a host of mistakes, a strange turn of events, an unfortunate mess.
This is the programme where I'm combining my passion and love of music and DJing with the skills and knowledge I've gained from being a practising psychotherapist. This is Journeys in Sound with me, Nimone, on BBC6 Music. So these conversations generally are free-form, flowing, in-depth insight into an artist's history, their backstory, their relationship with music, and their own musical process. It is a quest to find out how the music we listen to shapes our lives, how the experiences we've had have affected the music we've chosen to listen to, and pretty much everything in between. For this episode of Journeys in Sound, we are meeting one front woman who's weathered, well, so much technological change, perceptions of how women should or shouldn't be presented in the music industry, in her decades in it. More recently, seen her own physical battles render her centre stage in a way perhaps she wouldn't have seen come or hadn't planned for. Leaving the UK for America in the 90s to front Garbage alongside Butch, Steve and Duke, Shirley Manson has seen her fair share of the world of music over the years. And as they unleash an absolutely blinding 8th album, I'm thrilled that she's here to join us for a deep dive into her love of music, where it all started, how her early experiences have shaped the artist we know and love today, and how she's navigated various challenges along the way. Shirley Manson, welcome to Journeys in Sound.
What an introduction. I wish they were all like that. That's make me sound very compelling, I have to commit.
Shall I palm that on? Shall I say, yeah, you can take that?
Yeah, I'm just going to take this recording and present it every time I appear on any programme, anywhere, anytime.
Well, all of that has happened to you in various ways. So how are you doing? And when I say how are you, how does a question like that land with you? Does it feel easy to answer, or does it feel like it needs more time?
Oh, my goodness, what a question. I mean, I've been told that when you're being asked, how are you, you're not supposed to really say. You're just supposed to say, I'm great.
Uh-huh.
And so I would say I'm great. But I am quite great in that, you know, I have been through quite a period that was very challenging for me physically, as you so rightly say in your beautiful introduction. And I am now fully recovered, having basically 2 hip replacements in as many years, which was really challenging for me.
It's incredible just what you've weathered in terms of the physicality of what's happened to you. I mean, a challenging decade is not even really covering it. Am I right? You fell off the stage in 2016, and
I
that
did.
was the first into a barrier, and that sort of shattered one hip, which required obviously immense recovery from. And then last year, the other one just went from underneath you.
Yeah, it was crazy actually, because I did smash my hip in 2016 on a security barrier, and I was in pain, but I didn't pay too much attention to it. And then literally like 4 or 5 years later, it shattered and I had to get a total hip replacement. And that was really weird, but I recovered from it. And then I was on tour last summer in Europe, and about 3 days before we played Wembley Arena, I woke up and I was in excruciating pain, and I was like, oh my God, this is happening again, but it's to the other hip. And when we arrived in Wembley Arena to sound check, I could barely walk. And I was freaking out because I was like, of course, the whole show sits on my physicality. You know, I mean, if I can't do the show, there's no show. And I felt so like freaked out because I didn't want to let everyone down.
You can feel the weight even as you're saying it.
Yeah.
On some kind of emotion.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I didn't really know what to do, but I knew that I had to play the show. And luckily, my sister lives in London and she brought in my niece and nephew. And the minute I saw them, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this show. I'll be damned if I fall here. I'm going to do the show. I did the show at Wembley Arena. It was the biggest show of our latter part of our career. We haven't played there since the 90s. It was a great triumphant night. I woke up the following morning. I literally couldn't walk. My husband had to push me through Heathrow Airport in a wheelchair. And then I needed another hip replacement.
What do you think it was, but seeing your niece and nephew just gave you something?
I don't know what that was. I really, to this day, don't fully understand it. To this day, I say to my friends, I don't know how I played that show. I don't understand it. I don't know how I moved across the stage. I can barely remember the actual experience, other than I did it. I knew I did it.
I think also you're speaking to a type of dissociation that actually throughout life, it can be helpful in some instances, in the sense that it does take us out of our body and allow us to do things that perhaps we have to. But,
yeah, I definitely should have not been playing that show, but I did it and it's over now. And the hip's been fixed and everything's good.
So was that a second?
That was the second hip replacement, yeah. In as many years.
Yes.
You know, it was like bonkers.
Well, first of all, what are some of the feelings you've gone through that time? I mean, was there ever a point where you were like, this might have to be me on stage, done?
Yeah, I thought I was done. And I also felt enormous feelings of shame about being so crippled. I mean, really, it was fascinating. I mean, I'm really grateful, actually, for the experience in the end. But at the time, it was so painful and embarrassed. I felt embarrassed, like really crazy thinking.
Yeah. It's funny how that critical voice comes in, isn't it? It's hard to find a compassionate voice that goes, oh my God, look, what happened here?
Yeah. I start thinking about my mortality and, I'm going to be 60 next year. I'm not a spring chicken. And I realised, wow, this could be the end of your career on stage, And being on stage is the thing that I love the most.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
In that moment, what got you through?
Bloody determination, in the end. I think the spirit that pulled me through Wembley pulled me through recovery. And, it taught me a lot. I'm actually really grateful for the experience. It was a profound change and shift in my thinking. I had to start employing patience, which I've never been patient. I had to employ a focus on tiny incremental changes in my life, which I've never really tuned into. I always like the big splash. I'm a big personality. I've got a lot of thrust. And I had to get really quiet and really slow. And
how was that?
It was both ghastly and frustrating. And then it turned into something beautiful because it has actually slowed me down full stop. And it's made me more disciplined, more willing to have patience, and the understanding that I can improve my life in tiny, tiny little moments. And that's brand new for me.
I wanted to ask you, there's quite a lot of research to suggest that listening to our favourite music acts as a kind of analgesic. And I wondered, at your lowest period or your most painful part of recovery, was there any music that eased the pain? Was there anything you found yourself kind of going back to or listening to or discovering even that helped?
Well, I started, and I sound like such a pretentious arsehole, and please forgive me, but I started listening to a lot of classical music. I found great relief in that. But then, of course, the band I always go to when I'm in any kind of strife, I go to the Cocktail Twins. You know what I mean? Literally, they fix everything. And they can be used when you're really high and joyful, or when you're really lonely and struggling. So that would be my go-to band a lot to soothe my feathers.
So the track we started this chat with all those minutes ago was the first one on the album There's No Future in Optimism, from the new album Let All We Imagine Be the Light. It's quite an apocalyptic picture that we're hearing from you. My understanding was that it was steeped in feelings following the turmoil post-murder of George Floyd and the subsequent earthquake which hit LA. I think they were around the same time. So talk us through the genesis of the lyrics, how they came to you once you'd received the boys' instrumentals. I think these instrumentals for the new album landed, didn't they, whilst you were recovering?
They landed in my recovery. The rest of the band would send me musical ideas, and they sent through this email with the subject line, you know, There Is No Future in Optimism. And I loved the title because it really felt very cinematic to me. But I was also in immense disagreement with it. And I used it as a springboard for the whole record, basically, because I was in polar opposition to them using this title.
Yeah, because it sort of hit me a bit like that. I was like, really? I'm not sure I agree.
Yeah, I don't agree with it. Which was, again, they gave me a great gift. But the music that they sent me inspired this memory in me of being in Los Angeles right after watching the horror of the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent Black Lives Matter protests that took place in Hollywood, right out very close to my home. And my husband and I were living in what felt like a police state because there was helicopters above our home. There was like 24 hours a day, literally. There were at least 12 helicopters above our home. And it was really maddening. It starts to feel really oppressive and upsetting. And I was upset, of course, by the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent kind of like whitewashing of it. I mean, it was horrific. And what it took to get that policeman prosecuted was astounding. But I was really distressed by what was happening in LA. And I had this fantasy of me and my husband running away, but I couldn't because it was during lockdown, and I couldn't get home to see my family, which made me insane. So I had this fantasy of us running away, kind of like Bonnie and Clyde, but a non-violent version. So it's full of sort of love and hope, but ultimately what happened in real life was, yeah, as you said so rightly, there was a huge earthquake, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was quite significant, and my husband and I were silent. We just held each other's hand and waited for it to abate. And then I turned round to him and practically screamed, I need to get home. I need to return home.
If you're ready for love, 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 if you're ready for
Shirley, there's so much for us to cover. I do want to go back to the beginning. So it's interesting we've arrived at family at this point, because I always ask, what are people's first memories of being moved by sound or music?
Yeah, I was really young. I must have been about 4 or 5, and my mother was a singer, and I went to our local church for, I think they called them concert parties. I went to see my mum sing in the concert party. She sang On a Clear Day, I Can See Forever. She was wearing a white and blue dress with flowers on it, and I remember that. And I remember looking up at my mum on stage and seeing my mum, who had been, and I hate using this term, but who was a housewife, in inverted commas, back in the 70s in Scotland.
Yeah.
And seeing her completely transformed into what felt like a goddess. And she was singing this song, and I just felt the power of it. And it was a magical moment for me, and I think that's why I've always loved music ever since, because it's that transformative power. Almost physically remove you from reality and take you elsewhere. And I love that.
As you're speaking, I can see your body and the sense of that. What it must have been like to see Mum in this completely different way.
Yeah, it was extraordinary.
Oh, it must have
Yeah,
been.
and my mum loved music as well, and she introduced me to a lot of people that I consider my main solace, should I say.
Yeah,
but
go
like,
on, who was that?
Well, it would be like Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, Peggy Lee, Sarah Vaughan, Julie London. I mean, amazing singers, and she turned me on to them, and they're still people I listen to regularly today, you know.
Go on, is there a Peggy Lee track or a Nina Simone one we can play?
So many, but I would think of Wild as the Wind by Nina Simone would be a massive one.
Oh, my darling, cling to me, for we're creatures of the wind, wild as the wind, wild as the wind.
Don't Smoke in Bed by Peggy Lee. I mean, there's so many. Big Spender's another one. You know, I used to dance to that with my mum. My mum taught me how to like do the jitterbug and jive. And I think of mum when I listen to these records, and it connects me to her.
The minute you walked in the joint, I could see you were a man of distinction, a real big spender, good looking, so refined. Say, would you like to know what's going on in my mind? So let me get right to the point. I don't pop my cork for every guy I see. Hey, big spender, spend a little time with me.
You've got a massive smile on your face.
Yeah, I love my mum. She was amazing.
She was in a big band, wasn't she then, I think? As
She
well?
did.
So did she front that or sing with it? Or?
She sang with a band called the Squadroneers, all local Scottish concerts. But yeah, I have a beautiful photograph of her on stage in Portobello Town Hall, I think it is, which is where I now live, in Portobello in Scotland, in Edinburgh. And she's wearing a blue chiffon dress with a big petticoat and little satin stilettos, and she's holding her little hands in front of her chest and singing with her little face tipped up towards the light. I mean, it's so sweet. She looks like a little songbird, and it's absolutely beautiful.
That's an amazing picture.
Yeah.
Really. You can really feel the impression that had on you, and just seeing someone from your family, you know,
Yeah.
singing and up and doing it. And for you, singing, when did it start to take hold? Or
It took hold as young as, again, round about 4 or 5. I was learning how to dance. I went to a ballet school, and they too would hold these concerts at the Churchill Theatre in Edinburgh. And I was picked out of a lineup of girls to sing Never Smile at a Crocodile. And I was wearing a little swimsuit, a little turquoise swimsuit, and I sang Never Smile at a Crocodile in front of all these other dancers. But for some reason, she'd picked me out because I think she thought I had a good voice, and I was like really enthusiastic. And I was mortified that she'd picked me out of the lineup, and I bowed my head for the whole song. But I did sing it, and I still remember it. And I was really, really young. And then my parents put me into an all-girls choir.
yeah, I thought you'd done some choral stuff. as
Yeah,
well.
and that gave me an incredible musical education and
Like,
a
what
love
sort
of
things were you
harmonising.
singing? Yeah, what kind of...
It was pretty highbrow. You know, it was a lot of Benjamin Britten.
You made out of friends that you'd made at school, or...
No, they were... I went to an Edinburgh Youth Theatre. I mean, I was such a little showbiz kid. You know.
I can just hear a lot of after-school activity going on.
There was a lot of after-school activity, and
But you loved it. I mean,
I loved
sounds
it.
like it was
I loved
enjoyable.
it. I really loved it, and that's actually what I wanted to do, was act. And then I met this guy at Edinburgh Youth Theatre. He was a singer in a band, and he took a shine to me and asked me if I'd come and play keyboards for his band and sing backup. And so that's what I did, and I was in that band for a decade. So yeah, that's where it all
So
started.
ages...
I think I
early
was maybe
teens?
16, 17
Yeah.
when I first joined that band.
Yeah. So we'll rewind a little bit. Did you have friendships at school? I know school brought other feelings as well, and we'll come to that. But friendships at school that were formed around loves of music?
Not really, but who comes to mind is, because she died just a couple of weeks ago, was Mary McGuckin, my musical teacher. And it was her class I was in when John Lennon died. And she so generously said, we're not going to be doing any learning today. We're just going to listen to Beatles records and John Lennon records. And that's what we did. And she allowed me and my 3 besties at the time, we just sat in that classroom and cried, and she let us do it. And it was such a major moment for me.
Woman, I can hardly express my mixed emotions at my thoughtlessness. After all, I'm forever in your debt. And woman, I will try to express my inner feelings and thankfulness for showing me the meaning of success.
Yeah, I mean, school was not always easy, was it? I know you've talked before about being bullied or the kind of body dysmorphia that came out of some of those early experiences.
Yeah.
Say a bit more?
Well, I did get bullied at school. My first 2 years at secondary school were highly unpleasant, and there was a very hard girl who was in my class, and she took an intense dislike to me. I don't blame her.
Go on, say more. Why?
But she
what
made
makes you say
well
that?
because I was very confident, young, academically quite blessed kid. I came from a really nice, lower class, middle class family, and I had lovely sisters, beautiful parents.
Do you think there was a jealousy going?
I think she was jealous, and I was an easy target. I wasn't aggressive, physically violent or anything. And I think she just, I don't know. I had red hair, which caused a lot of people to pay attention to you back in Scotland in those days. You were a figure of fun if you were a redhead. And so for whatever reason, I captured her attention, and she just physically intimidated me for a couple of years until she got pregnant, God bless her, and she left school and I was left in peace. But what happened after that was I lost complete interest in being academically successful because it had brought a lot of negative attention to me. And I just basically quit school. I stopped really going a lot. I was becoming more and more rebellious. I was very angry. I was very upset that my parents wouldn't intervene because I told them I was getting bullied, and they were like, you need to figure this out. And it made me rage. So, yeah.
And in some ways, and I don't know if I've got this right, but there was harm to yourself that you made that perhaps was a kind of outlet for some of that rage?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I was a self-harmer for sure. I cut myself with a small pocket knife that I used to wear on my shoe in the shape of a fish. Like, go figure. It's just so twisted, but I do think that I was dealing with a lot of rage and frustration, but I also think I was a hypersensitive kid. It's only really looking back now that I realise I wasn't too sensitive. I was just hypersensitive. And that in itself is a sort of like a superpower in a way, if it's used correctly. But unfortunately, it caused me a lot of angst, and I couldn't articulate myself creatively. I just was like this seething little mass of energy, and I turned it on myself because I didn't want to get violent or aggressive with somebody else. It was the easiest, safest way of kind of dealing with all that pent up, anger and rage. Actually, I was rageful that this girl had terrorised me for so long.
And what would you say to her now?
I don't know if there's anything you can say. I think my parents were quite right. They were like, you need to figure this out. You need to figure out how to move through the world as best you can. If you really feel that you're under physical threat, you should probably express that to somebody. But I always felt with this bully that she was reluctant to really hit me,
So it was almost a sort of pent-up aggression that never
expressed itself.
found fruition.
Yeah. I guess there is no easy answer because the fact that my parents did make me stand on my own 2 feet is absolutely why I've been able to hold my agency in a very difficult career, a very difficult business.
Yeah.
and a very difficult situation where I've found myself the only woman a lot of the time in a room of men. And I've been able to hold on to my agency despite being the only woman in the room. And I think a lot of that is because my parents were just like, yeah, you need to figure this out.
You say my time is over, that I have gotten old, that I no longer do it for you, and my face now leaves you cold. You say I'm looking heavy, and I have lost my mind, that I should do the right thing by everybody, and I should just...
That sense of being the only woman in a room and the sense of realisation, I think, about the patriarchy come through on the new album. You talk about it particularly, was it in Chinese
Yeah.
Firehorse? That's the one that seemed to reference that. I mean, how much truth is there to the story that two journalists ask you if you were going to retire?
It's 100% truthful.
One male, one female.
Yeah,
They
on
both-
on the same day. Different interviews, but it was day one of promoting a brand new record that was being released by a major record label. I felt that I was holding my agency, and I was shocked, to be honest, that two people individually asked me the same question at the age, I was 54, I think.
It's the last album before.
Yeah, it was the last record. And I'm like, how is this even possible? And by the way, I know for a fact you would not be asking that same question of my bandmates, who are considerably older than I am.
Yeah, all the boys are old.
Yeah, and I was outraged. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to speak to this because I think it's outrageous that women are still being expected to disappear past our age of sexual appeal. You know, it's still being insinuated that we have no worth in our society past the age of, what shall we say, 25, 30 years old. The minute we have a tiny little crinkle at the side of our eye, then we're old and over. And I'm so tired of it. And I'm very grateful to a lot of my musical heroes who have, by example, shown me that there is agency to be had in the music industry past, into their 70s and 80s. And by that, I mean a Patti Smith or a Chrissie Hynde, Debbie Harry, Stevie Nicks, Chaka Khan, all these amazing women who are showing the world for the first time in the history of humankind that women can have careers well into their 7th, 8th decade. And that is, we've never seen that before. We've never seen women in the workplace in their 70s and 80s ever before in the history of this, of humankind. I think it's marvellous.
And Chinese Firehorse particularly, that has particular reference to what you're talking about, doesn't it? So explain a bit more what that refers to.
Well, I'm a Chinese Firehorse under the Chinese calendar. And back in ancient times in China, they would kill female Chinese Firehorse babies because they were seen as threat to society. And I think our society still sees women with agency as a threat. And so it seemed like a perfect sort of transportation of this idea that I believe women have agency and are precious and necessary to a healthy society. Not just the young ones, but also middle-aged women and
wiser, older.
Elders,
elders, yeah.
So I think it's an exciting idea, and I also think it's funny. I think it's full of humour, and I hope that there's some young person, whether it be male, female, any other gender, hears this song and thinks, you know what? I'm not old and over.
Yeah, I may be much older, so much older. Yeah, so much older than you. But I've still got the power in my brain, in my body. I'll take no shit from you.
That somebody maybe in their 40s will say, you know what, I can be an artist, or I can be anything I want to be. I can be an adventurer. I can be full of joy and still feel my own vigour and my power as a human being by using my brain and my imagination. You can indeed achieve things. They might not be exactly in the shape that you thought they might be when you were young, but you can still write that novel. You can still take your guitar and stand up at your local pub and perform. There's so many things you can still do well into your 60s and 70s. And
It's
80s.
Mary Wesley that comes to mind, actually, because I don't think she started writing until she was late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, I think of my hero, Louise Bourgeois, the visual artist, who I believe didn't have a major exhibition until she was 75. And she's one of the most important figures in art, you know. I talk with my girlfriends a lot of the time who are like, you know, I had children and they're my life. And I'm like, yeah, but you once wanted to be a writer. You can write now. And they go, no, I don't think so. Yeah, I'm telling you, you can. You can write that book. You can write that song, you know.
I feel like you're championing some of this creativity in others. There's a kind of element of social media within this track, or at least speaking to the idea of social media and how it's helped galvanise women, actually, positively. And we would talk a lot about the negative. I did want to ask you what your relationship with social media is like. Are you a fan? Do you use it when you have to? Do you regularly fall down rabbit holes, or do you avoid it?
I feel ambivalent towards it. It's here, and it's provided a great portal for our band and our fans. They can hear directly from us, which is such a great gift when you're a band who has been written about inaccurately at times.
Go on, you know, like what's been said, the type of thing.
Well, like very recently, the Daily Mail ran an article about how I looked unrecognisable. And I was able to directly address that in front of like 500,000 followers on Instagram. And it really is a beautiful tool for us to be able to address certain things like that, you know.
Where you might not have had a voice previously.
You would have had no voice, you know. And it gives you a sense of some control over the narrative, you know.
Which you may... my sense of hearing you say that makes me feel like perhaps it didn't always feel like you had a control over the narrative at all.
No control.
I mean, you touch on that in Get Out of My Face, actually, and alongside your thoughts on the effects of the patriarchy. So how do you characterise patriarchy, how it's affected you, and kind of the realisation of its effects, perhaps, this end of your career?
Well, first of all, I have to say I love men. I work primarily with men. I've spent my whole life in their company, and my general feelings towards men is one of great admiration and love. And I've heard a lot of women I know make comments, make statements about how men work, how they think, how they behave. And that has not been my experience, you know. And I've had a 30-year, actually I've had a 45-year career with primarily men. And it's been a great privilege of my life to sit with men when they're not aware that they're being observed by a woman or judged by a woman. You just get to be around them and see how they function in society. And most of the time, it's been really beautiful. So I will say that first and foremost. Second of all, patriarchy feels to me like an ancient old way of thinking about how the world can be. It hasn't been challenged by any other gender other than a white male supremacy, essentially. Now, there's been lots of great ideas have come from that, but I do think, we are 2025 years into an old system that really needs readdressing and reimagining and redesigning so that all of us who live and share on this planet can benefit too from the structures that are in place. That's what I think of about the patriarchy. It's just old-fashioned, and it's, generally speaking, very white and very supremacist. And I would love to see other people being represented in government. And I think it would be really great for all of us, including men.
Well, it's had a lot of effects on men as well. I hear it more as a masculine and feminine parts, and those reside in all of us in different degrees. So it feels like it has, as you're explaining, more to do with how it's been wielded than who it represents.
Exactly, beautifully put. I mean, and I know beautiful men in my life who really benefit from a different approach, a different way of imagining how a man or a boy can move through this life instead of feeling like they have to fight, that they have to be powerful. All these stupid things that are expectations heaped on them too, not just women. They have to be really sexually, motivated. They have to be lewd about women. They have to enjoy sports. The list is endless, right? And I just think all of us would benefit from a breakdown of these ridiculous stereotypes that are created for us all to inhabit.
I feel like I need a rewind noise now because I want to take you back. Hearing you talk about the men you've spent a lot of time around, which would be Butch, Duke and Steve in the band. What was it like being whisked to be in America or meet these kind of figures? I mean, Butch, who'd done quite a lot in the music industry and obviously produced Nevermind alongside loads from the Smashing Pumpkins and Sonic Youth. What was it like? And how did... You were 30 at that point, or
I was
20s?
Late 20s, and it was intense. And I was very intimidated by Butch's career, particularly his involvement with Nirvana, because that has remained a spectre throughout my whole career.
That particular album?
Yeah, and that amazing band. Kurt Cobain is, one of the greats who will go down in history along with a Jimi Hendrix or a Marilyn Monroe. The spectre's huge. And I've always felt that garbage has had to play a secondary role to that legacy and that achievement that Butch, rightfully so, deserves.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because every interview we did in the 90s, the journalists were obsessed with talking to Butch about Kurt. Rightly so. This is not a complaint it's just an observation, but it was very difficult to shoulder as a young woman, trying to figure out what my worth was as a singer, as an artist, as a performing artist, as a recording artist. It was just very difficult because I just felt the whole time I was failing, that I was failing Butch, that I hadn't provided him with a lead singer who could compete with that. I mean, I'm not saying it was right. It was crazy.
No, you can hit, yeah.
But it was a real thing.
Now you say it. It must have been immensely
intimidating, and of course difficult to sit in an interview when somebody's like, "Oh, you've got a new Garbage record out." Yeah. But anyway, how was it working with Kurt?
What was it like?
You'd finish an interview and the journalist couldn't wait to literally physically push you out the way to get to Butch to get a photograph and or an autograph, right?
So what effect do you think that had?
Well, it was destructive for sure, but it also was really good for me too, because eventually I had to have a word with myself and figure out, okay, why are you doing this? Who are you as an artist? What is it you want to achieve? What's it you want to say? How do you want to be in the world? It was great. Again, it was a bit like my surgery. It was like awful and also great. I gave myself permission to not be a legend like Kurt Cobain. It was okay. It didn't mean that I didn't therefore have value as an artist. I made my peace with it. But it has certainly been something that has sat on all our shoulders, the whole band. For Butch, of course, it's something beautiful and something he has ownership over that we don't as a band have. So that in itself complicates the tenuous balance that exists between band members, anyway. So yeah, it's been fascinating.
If I'm silent, then I'm not real. If I speak up, then no one will hear. If I wear a mask, then somewhere to hide. Silence is golden. I have been broken, saving my own skin. So nobody wins.
And communication-wise, I know I've heard you speak about, or kind of talk about what that's been like over the years and how that's changed. You've just done a fantastic face that I wish the listeners could. Like an eye roll to end all eye rolls. As I say. Was it the word communication?
It would
Shirley?
be the word communication.
Okay.
I mean,
what was the communication like in Garbage, Shirley?
Well, it used to be pretty good because I bust a gut making it happen. I became the interface, between us all. I would run from one band member to the other and say, blah, 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 you hurt their feelings, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I think he's...
Really?
Yeah, I think he's cross because this happened. The record company are saying this, guys. You should be aware that we're going to the UK in 3 weeks and we're going to do this, and the next thing. I really ran myself ragged.
I was going to say, when did you become aware of how much you were holding? Because that's a lot.
Yeah, it was a gradual realisation. And then after my mum died, well, we took a hiatus as my mum was dying. Not because my mum was dying, it just happened to be at the same time as my mum dying. But we took a hiatus because we weren't getting along very well due to external pressures of... Basically, I'd say our failing career at the time. We got dropped by our record label. It was very difficult. There was a huge change in music at the time.
I was going to say, musically, different things were bubbling up.
Exactly.
Give us the timeline, the era.
This was around 2001.
Yeah, early 90s.
And it spread through into 2005. And by the end of 2005, we were done. We were despondent and dismayed, and we couldn't do anything right. And the press were telling us we were over. And you start to believe that stuff.
And even 10 years, isn't it, after debut came?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you start to believe that you you have no value, and then you start chipping away at each other because we were the only people close enough where we could vent our frustrations. And so we did some damage to the band dynamic as a result, not deliberately, and actually nothing awful was ever said, but we weren't enjoying ourselves. It became very difficult, joyless. It was a joyless experience. And so we decided to take a break. And in that break, my mother got really sick. And by around about 2011, I was desperate to sing again, and the rest of the band were like, yeah, let's do something. And it was when we got back together again in 2011 that I realised you have to let these men be men, and you need to let them be masters of their own domain. And I had to be the master of mine. And as a result, the communication in the band has diminished to zero.
Okay.
I mean, we're still pally.
Yeah.
We still have fun together, but we don't talk about anything. We don't talk about our work. We don't talk about our desires or our future or our experience in the music industry. It's just, they don't talk. They're very self-contained. I think they talk obviously to their families. And
well, I wonder if that's actually the era you've moved into, because it sounds like initially it was all the four of you doing all of exactly as you've just described, talking about the music industry, working out the record label stuff together, and actually having a bit of distance from each other and having elsewhere to go and discuss those things.
Yeah, like adults.
Yeah. You then get the purity of, we're just making music.
Yeah, the conversation is all musical now at this point. It's not even... Yeah, we don't even talk about making music. It just has literally been a conversation, a dialogue, a musical dialogue.
But knowing that you still want to do it together.
Yeah, I mean, I love them. They annoy the shit out of me, as I'm sure I annoy the shit out of them. But we do share a very blessed chemistry where we work really well together. And I think we're all proud of what we've achieved together, and the fact that we're all still here, we realise how unique that is and how rare it is. It's like, oh my God, like people now say this to us. We'll walk into a music festival, they'll be like, all the original members.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I know,
So,
it's something.
But we are running out of time, I'm not trying to be sort of negative Nelly or anything, but I realise this isn't going to last forever. We are definitely literally running out of time. My band are a lot older than me for a start. And I know Butch has talked about retiring. And so, we'll see where it goes. But for now, it's healthy-ish. I'm just not very communicative.
I love that. And that might be the best way for the moment.
Yeah.
The world's on fire, pull me closer. Hold me tight, let the light shine through us. Whisper you love me, wrap your arms around me. Take down my hair, untie my shoes and dress me. I'm going crazy, I'm out of my mind. I can't believe my ears, believe my eyes. I woke up crying, got the fright of my life. Everything burns until we make this right. Don't fail me, your arms around me. Faith, don't shake me and don't desert me.
You use your voice so differently on the likes of Only Happy When It Rains and Stupid Girl from the beginning, through Special on version 2.0, through the Bond theme, even on this album. I feel like the opener that we heard at the top of this interview, There's No Future in Optimism, through to Hold, which again is a different... How do you think about using your voice? Do you, even if you do?
I love that you mentioned Hold, because I wanted to employ a different voicing on that record. I want to actually employ different shades of my voice every time I step up to the mic. I'm trying to explore what it means to be a singer, who's growing up and hopefully getting better as an artist, better as a vocalist. I don't know, but I think I've gotten better. And I love exploring different parts of my voice to bring in different voices and flirt with different moods and sound of my voice, where I pitch the voice, and that to me is really interesting. It's fascinating as part of just developing as a musician. I don't want to be doing the same thing. the amount of harping on about the first record, you know, and that's the only decent record they've ever made, is so tedious to me. I'm like, that may very well be the only record we've ever made that y'all consider of any value. But for me, each record we've done, I feel has developed, and we've not been afraid to try different things. And I think that's, you know, you're only here once. You're here as a human being only once to sort of roam this world and try different things. And maybe there's something out there I haven't tried yet that's going to really be magical. So I've just tried always to bring new voicings into everything I've ever done, tried different ways of writing, trying to sort of articulate different things about what it means to be a woman in the world, and particularly what it means to be an ageing woman, which is so underserved in the music industry, full stop. Like, even somebody like Bob Dylan has never spoken about what does it mean to be a woman in your 50s in the world. That's never been touched on, you know? Not really. So I find it exciting, you know.
It's definitely on this album. You can feel it. Do you take care of it, your voice?
I don't take care of it as well as I should, but I did get nodes round about our third album and have to have vocal surgery on my vocal cords, and it was terrifying. And so I'm more careful with it than I probably let on. I mean, I don't really go out after shows anymore. Like I used to go out, you know, we'd go dancing, we go to clubs, we go to parties. I can't do that. I have to go back to my hotel room and be quiet. On days off, I can only hang with my husband so that everything's quiet and I'm resting the voice. And now I try hard not to do too many what we call 3 in a rows when we're touring, which is 3 concerts in a row. I try and like break it up so that it's 2 and then you have a day off. You can 2 and a day off.
And you, more generally, in terms of self-care, I mean, I have to ask that. We're Journeys in Sound. That's with my other hat on, the therapist hat. I think a lot about how we take care of ourselves in amongst the other things that we do. So for you, do you have anything that constitutes a self-care routine?
Oh, my God. That's such a good question because I'm not great at self-care.
The number of people who've actually said, it sounds good, but no.
Yeah, I'm not bad. Like I've stayed physical, tried to eat decently, but not. I don't do diets. I don't do, like, I wish I could be the kind of woman who turns up for lunch to meet her girlfriends and have a green salad and a glass of water, but I'm not that girl.
I love it. No, you're not.
I'm not that kind of girl.
Go on then, what's on your menu?
Well, I like fun. I like to eat. Like, I will eat dessert. I want to have French fries. I love having wine for lunch.
I'm looking at the dessert menu before I look at
it. Yeah, exactly. You know, I love all that stuff that's not good for you, you know.
I can imagine it's been a different experience having lived in LA.
Oh my God.
Different
I mean, the amount of green salads and undrunk, what they do, like I've noticed, is they'll come in for lunch and they'll say, I'm just not that hungry. I had a huge breakfast. And then you'll be thinking, oh, here we go. And then the salad gets ordered and always a dirty martini, and it sits there undrunk for the duration of the lunch, but it's just so they look like they're really kind of letting go and being freaky and adventurous. I don't know, not that drinking alcohol is freaky and adventurous, but I just would rather they say I don't drink, and I'd respect it. So then immediately I go, I'll have the French fries with the lasagna, please.
And the chocolate
mousse. And the chocolate mousse. Thank you.
Love it. Girl after my own heart. We're going to have to do a part 2, Shirley, because I feel like we've not even scratched the surface. But before I let you go, I always ask my guests for a self-care track. So the track that you would turn to for a kind of audio hug if you needed one, or you want to feel a particular way. I mean, it doesn't have to be to make you feel better, but what would you consider to be a self-care track?
Oh, I mean, it's not exactly self-care, but I would always probably, well, I told you earlier I'd lean to the Cocteau Twins, but I also would lean towards a Suzie Sue track. Probably something along the lines of Happy House by Suzie. Because what that does, it connects me with when I was at my most potent. as a young girl waiting to bud. And I connected with her music, and it filled me with the idea that anything was possible, and there was power in it, and there was rebellion in it, and there was androgyny in it. And I don't know, it just sounds like freedom to me. And so when I feel a little down and I need a little boost, that will always pick me up. Listening to any Suzie song, but particularly early Suzie.
Oh, Shirley Manson, honestly, I've just punched the air. If you're listening, you can't see me, but I'm very happy to. Absolutely love Suzie. That's a great choice. Thank you so much for sharing your journey in sound. We'll get you back soon.
Thank you for having me. It was a joy.
Surprise!